hit play on the music, you're welcome to get that started. It begins in a pretty chill way, or all of it's pretty chill. And I think what we're going to do to begin is to set up a bolster and a block and a little ramp and just lay down on it. This time of year, I'm having a really hard time with yin practice in general, like personally, because I've been struggling with feeling kind of tired. And sometimes just laying on the floor makes it like even more of a thing. So we're going to be on the floor today, but we're definitely going to use a bunch of support so that maybe we're not just like totally, totally laying down. Beginning in this sort of chest opening pose here. You can keep the soles of your feet on the floor if you want to extend your legs out long or even like cross your legs. You're welcome to do that. Starting the music whenever you want to. Good morning, everybody. What a week, huh? Getting yourself settled onto your props, just think about getting as comfortable as possible. So all of your joints arranged so that there isn't a whole lot of strain in the muscles surrounding them. You're really thinking about letting your muscles release and relax. Which I know is like not the easiest thing sometimes. Right, so a few moments just to scan through your physical body and notice any places of tension or holding where it just doesn't feel necessary. Sometimes the tension we carry around in our back or our legs is necessary because it's strength. But sometimes the tension is a little less important for our well-being, like tension around the eyes, around the jaw. And thinking about that little line from the Tao Te Ching where it says, soften your glare. You blunt your edges. And just settle in a few minutes here. So one of my practices is every morning I wake up and I make some coffee. And then I take out a couple of decks of cards and pull some cards. And sometimes the cards make no sense. And sometimes they feel really good. And this morning, my cards almost felt like a little bit of like a pep talk. So I wanted to share them with you. Right. And I pulled an archetype card to kind of be the overriding card for the whole little reading. And this is the card actually that I pulled for myself for the whole year. It's the self card, which is about not like yourself and who you are in the world necessarily, but yourself watching yourself. Who you are underneath the surface of things. Okay, a little bit more of like who you are without all of your roles. Good. Who you are watching the events of your life. This observer role. And so in these last 10 breaths or so, let's just practice that observership. Really honing your attention to the sound and the feel and the depth of your breath. Do your very best to stay with yourself here. Just another couple of breaths here on your back, on your bolster. Maybe you're stretching your arms out past your head or crossing them over your chest or just doing something like a little bit different. And taking notice of the way the shoulder blades feel this morning, whether or not you've been clenching there. Nice. All right, and then very slowly start to bring yourself up into a seated position. You might roll off to the side and then come up, or maybe just sit right up. And we'll take a little twist, I'm thinking. So if you happen to have a blanket nearby, it can be nice to open up the blanket nice and long underneath you so that when you twist side to side, you have some blanket to kind of thread in between your inner lower legs for padding. We're gonna sit with our right hip to the bolster and then just take your hands on either side and lower yourself down. And maybe as you lower yourself down, your right cheek stays down. You might turn the head over to the other side. And there is no like prescribed positioning of the bolster here. If it feels better for you to have the lower part of that bolster back, you can do that. Yeah. So while this pose is kind of compressive in nature, you never want to feel like crammed into it. There should always be this element of spaciousness somewhere. And I think we'll spend about 5 or 6 minutes over on this side of the twist. Just doing our best to move slowly today. Okay, so in addition to the self card, I pulled out the Lovers, the Father of Wands or the King of Wands, the Mother of Swords or the Queen of Swords, and the Ace of Cups. And so this is kind of like a really interesting combination because it's really highlighting this like sense of joining and connection, and this sense of honoring compassion and care for each other, and to really act in those ways. But since we have the self card in the middle, this is also really kind of pointing right back at us, right back at yourself. Okay, really owning all of the parts of you. Allowing yourself to see all of the parts of you. Good. You might begin this morning just by noticing the parts of yourself that you feel really like proud of and really good about. Maybe it's your generous spirit, maybe it's your kindness or your practicality, resourcefulness, whatever it might be. Just taking notice and really like, I don't know, like patting yourself on the back for a minute or two. Hmm. 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 Taking a look at the parts of you that are easy to see and easy to love. And letting those things just kind of fill you up and brighten you up. About 10 more breaths here. You might change the position of your head, turn it back or turn it to the other side. Good. And then just take your time to come out of this, sitting up again. Maybe as you come to sit up, you take your hands onto your knees and roll your head and neck around, or you might even decide to take some gentle, like seated spine wiggles, little cats and cows. That feels like the right thing to do. Good. And on your own time, just finding the twist over on the other side, getting yourself nice and snuggled in and cozy. Maybe a little something in between the knees, wrapped around your feet. Good. Wiggling that bolster into just the right position for yourself. Good. Turning your chest down towards the bolster if it wants to go there, but it could be propped up a little to the side. Good. Head in either direction. Nice. Getting yourself snuggled in again. And so another one of the cards that I pulled was the Father or the King of Wands. The wand suit is all about fire. It's all about action. So this particular card points to like a certain boldness. Right? Boldness in action, boldness in intention, thought, and boldness in just allowing yourself to be however you are, right? No bullshit. Good. I like to think of the Father of Wands or the King of Wands as kind of like he reaps the harvest. He allows for this sense of abundance and fulfillment. So, thinking back on all of those things that are easy for you to love about yourself, think of the seeds that you've planted in service of those different things. So, maybe one of the things that comes up for you is that you know that you're deeply kind. How are you deeply kind? You're kind of following the chain of events from this attribute to something out there in the world, maybe. If your mind is kind of danced off to something else, bring it right back into your physical body with the sound of your next breath. Just reconnecting. Good. How about another 10 breaths or so? Good. Last breath or two. Great. And how about from here, just kind of propping ourselves up into either hands and knees or a downward facing dog. And maybe in your down dog, if you choose to take it, your head can rest on a bolster somewhere. And if you happen to find hands and knees, just give yourself a little wiggle around again. Good. A few big breaths more. Wonderful. And then we're going to take a little bit of time just to find a standing forward fold. And you might use a whole lot of support here. Maybe you bring your feet close to your bolster. And place your hands on the bolster. You could decide to grab your elbows. Sometimes I like to take a little weight and place it on top of my feet here too. Like the bolster could sit on top of the feet. And just feel free to bend your knees and give yourself a little sway if you need to or want to. If you want to hold still, you're certainly welcome to hold still too. Good. If it feels right to clasp your hands behind your back and interlace your fingers and press your knuckles up, that's a place you could go if you want to. Just a couple more breaths here. Perfect. All right, and we're gonna come on out of this just by bending the knees and setting the knees down on your bolster. And we're gonna take a little toe squat here. So my feet are really kind of stiff this morning. I'm gonna take a block on top of my bolster and rest my shins on the block. Ideally, all of your toes are tucked underneath. And you could have your hands down in front of you too, yeah. You would just maybe like a minute or so here. It's boot season. We definitely need a little bit more attention to the feet, I think, when they're cooped up like that. Notice if you're crunching up any of your toes and see if you can let them go. And notice where your heels are in relation to your sitting bones. Good. Sitting up nice and tall. Take a nice big inhale and feel the crown lifting up. Good. Exhale. A few more breaths. Good, and then go ahead and just release out of this and into a seated position. You're gonna extend both of the legs out nice and long just for a moment or two and roll the ankles around. Point and flex the feet a few times. And how about we cross that right ankle over the left knee and give ourselves a tiny little foot massage here. So first getting in on that arch, moving your toes around. If you're sockless, you might even place your fingers in between your toes. Feel like a little bit of a weirdness. And squeeze your heel a few times. Massage your ankles. Your feet and ankles are just rich with all of these vital points for all of our organ systems, or many of them, not all of them. Good. Grab a hold of your toes and just kind of turn them side to side. Go gentle. Okay, and then we're going to take a seated figure four. So you might bend the knee and take the sole of the left foot to the floor with the right ankle on top of the left knee. If this feels like I don't think so, you can always lie down on your back too. Right? Bring your back all the way to the floor. It's the same type of thing. And we'll just hang here for a few moments, a few minutes actually. And there might be this gentle rock of the lower body side to side, or you might decide to hold still. Good, another 7 or 8 deep breaths here. Nice. So let's come on out of this just by extending that right leg out nice and long. I'm going to take the sole of the left foot to the inside line of the right leg. And we'll just fold forward over that right leg, or sit up if you want to. Folding forward isn't quite your favorite thing. You can always sit up and just focus on the positioning of your pelvis here, a nice neutral pelvis. But yeah, you might decide to fold in and maybe release a little something in the lower back. Relax your jaw. And maybe your head rests on something, or your chest rests on your bolster. Good. A few more big breaths here in this forward fold. Good. And then start to just rolling yourself up and out of this. And there are so many things you could do, one of which might be like reaching up with that right hand, the left hand's down behind you. Maybe pick up the hips for a stargazer. You can hang in the middle, rock your knees side to side. All kinds of ideas. Just taking like a good minute or so for some like lazy kind of movement. It's a little bit of this rebalancing. And eventually we're going to bring ourselves back up into that seated figure 4. So, of course, I already forgot which side we did. I think maybe this time we crossed the left ankle over the right knee. Does that sound right? Yeah, okay. Yeah, so either sitting up or coming to lie down on your back if that feels like a better option for your hands, your wrists, wherever. Good. Sitting up nice and tall, perhaps. Good. Take notice of the way the left hip feels this morning. Good. Just observing your physical body and the shape. Good. Another maybe 3 or 4 breaths here. Wonderful. Let's come on out of this. Extend that left leg out nice and long in front of you. Good. And then you can tuck the right foot somewhere into the inside line of that left leg and fold yourself forward if that works. Or sit up if you prefer that. Good. Taking some time again just to really be wise. Okay, to choose your supports. And breathing into this body of yours. Good. So one of the other cards that I pulled, or I guess the last one, is the Queen of Swords or the Mother of Swords. The Swords is all about the intellect. It's the air element. It's our thoughts. This particular card is concerned with honesty and truthfulness in all of the ways you can imagine, but specifically with your thoughts and your deeds and your words. I'm thinking about how you can be honest with yourself, with other people. And I think that this really wonderfully ties back to the Father, the King of Wands, this element of boldness, right? Truth is like a really bold thing. And tying that back to the self, just as there are really wonderful things about ourselves, sometimes there are some other things that are like a little difficult to look at, right? And something that requires a little bit of truthfulness or honesty with ourselves about how we operate in the world, how our minds operate, specific to this card, the Queen of Swords. See how you might get in your own way. So just taking a few more moments here in this pose, maybe allowing your mind to touch on some of that if you want to. Just a couple more breaths here. And then slowly start to roll yourself up and out of this. Maybe you're taking a stargazer pose, your right hand comes back, your left hand lifts up, maybe the hips. Maybe sitting down, moving your knees side to side. Good. And eventually, we're all going to meet in a butterfly shape. So bring the soles of the feet together, the knees out wide. Sometimes I like to prop things underneath my knees, a couple pillows. But a little fold forward here, just for a couple minutes, maybe 4 minutes or so in butterfly. Hmm. Good. And your butterfly, kind of playing around with the weight of your head. You might let it drop all the way down. Notice how things feel in between your shoulder blades, mid back and lower back. If there's any weirdness that's too intense to hang out with, you might lift the head and just kind of give the crown a bit of a reach forward. Good. And wherever you are, you might roll your head just a touch from side to side. So sometimes when we undergo lots of stress, our physical bodies can become kind of weak and tight, is the simplest way to put it. And what we're sort of going for is this strong and supple physical state. And kind of stepping away from the rigidity and the fragility for just a little bit more movement, a little bit more ease and fluidity. Greater mobility. And one of the real gifts of this particular practice is that it gives us a lot of information about our body. And and everything else too, about our mind as well, if we're willing to sit and kind of listen to it and just observe it. Good. About 15 more breaths here in your butterfly. Good. And start to just lift yourself on up and out of this. And it really wouldn't be a proper yin class without at least a little bit of time on our back. So let's find our backs. And I think at first we're just going to move into a starfish pose, but make sure that you have at least a bolster and a block around, or a block, I should say, and a blanket to put on top of you if you want for a little bit of weight and warmth. But yeah, taking up space. Taking up a little bit of space at first. In the starfish kind of pose where maybe your body looks like a big X. Maybe you gently wiggle the shoulders and the hips and pick them up and set them back down again and find what's ideal for you. And just allow yourself to settle into the ground here. And as you settle into the ground, bring some attention into your solar plexus area, which is this really fascinating place in our bodies where it's just this beautiful web of tissues right below our breastbone and above our navel. And there's so much connective tissue here in our solar plexus. You first notice how it moves. How your lower ribs move. How your low belly and your low back move. Good, and then see if you can imagine that your inhale begins at your solar plexus area, and as you inhale, the breath or the energy from the breath moves up, out into the fingertips and down into the feet and the toes. As you exhale, all of that comes right back into the solar plexus and concentrates again. And using your breath to kind of move the energy around in your body. And move your attention around. It's really a lot of the same. Maybe another 7 or 8 of these nice breaths where you're focusing in on your center. Good, and then on your next breath out, you can just bring your arms alongside your body and bend your knees in towards your chest. And maybe you're taking a couple of little rocks along your lower back here. If you want to turn this into something like a happy baby pose, that's a thought. It's less important what you have going on in your legs and a little bit more important that your lower back finds that bit of lengthening. So just set up your legs so that your hips and your knees and your ankles are more or less comfortable. Right, and then we're gonna get ourselves set up for a restorative bridge pose. If you have a bolster and you like that bit of cushiness, you might use the bolster under your pelvis, or you might decide to take a walk. But just making sure that your whole pelvis feels pretty well supported here. Like it's not any real effort to stay for a while. Could be nice to have a blanket over your belly or over everything. Good. Setting up your arms so that your shoulders, your neck feel just right. Good. And you might decide to keep both of your knees bent the whole time. You could take one of your legs out long and keep the other leg bent. Really stretch through the front of that extended leg's hip. You can extend both legs long if that works for your body and you like it. And there might also be this little bit of self-massage here. Maybe you're taking your hands and rubbing along your hip points or rubbing along your belly or even your lower ribs to help kind of de-armor the diaphragm a little bit, to de-armor these deep core muscles that fire up when we get stressed out and things are intense. And we'll stay here for a few minutes. If you have one leg extended out long, now might be a good time to bring it in. Extend the other leg out long. Good. A few more big breaths here. Good. If you have one or both of your legs extended out long, bring the soles of the feet down and pick up your hips and just roll yourself down. Maybe here you're moving your knees side to side, a little windshield wiper, or pulling your knees to your chest. Maybe you want to roll over onto your side for a moment. Sometimes that feels like just the thing after a bridge pose, like curling up into a ball. Good, and let's drop the knees over to one side and just take a little twist here. Good, letting this twist be what you need it to be. You can wiggle your shoulders over this way or that way. Bring your knees in close to your belly or drop them down low. And take notice of your head and neck. Sometimes things get a little intense there in a twist. So just do what you can to soften things a little bit. Approaching yourself in a loving way and really giving yourself what you need here. Nice. A few more big breaths on this side. Excellent. Yeah. When you're ready, you can just wiggle over to the twist on the other side. There's no wrong way to do it. Maybe you take a second in the center, or maybe you just move there in a super fluid way, but allowing your body once again to kind of settle in. You support between the knees or under the shoulder. Good. Good. You can choose to stay right here for maybe like another minute or so. Or you can find your final shape whenever you're ready. And your final shape can be anything. Maybe you rolling over to your side. Maybe you want to take Shavasana, or maybe you want to sit up. There's no wrong way to do it. And if you come to sit up, just thinking about finding a nice, kind of steady and comfortable seat. What the support for that might look like. Chair, a blanket under your seat, maybe sitting on your heels. And if you've come to sit up, really take notice of your jaw, and your ears, the inner and outer corners of your eyes. And your nostrils. The place where your lips meet. The center of your throat. And the center of the chest. And take a moment to kind of sit back into yourself if you're sitting up. And feel a gentle lift from the solar plexus, kind of holding it all up here. And just observe these next 10 breaths. And if you are still lying down, slowly bring yourself up to a seated position. And if you're already seated, you might take your head around in a little bit of a circle, maybe a big circle. Maybe a little gentle wiggling of the shoulders, whatever it is. We'll take our hands and place them on top of our heart. And maybe take the hands and just move them side to side. A little massage here. And eventually drop the head down towards your hands and your heart, honoring your practice and honoring each other too. Oh, happy Friday, everybody. Wendy should be back next week. Thanks for coming this morning. It's good to see your faces.